Do not touch those eggs or you will have a heart attack. That was a message that I was taught at one point, and is there any truth to it? Let's dive in. Welcome to a Healthy Control podcast, providing education to create a healthy, balanced lifestyle, empowering you to take control of your health and not let health take control of you. Welcome back to another episode of a Healthy Control podcast. I'm super excited because today, this is our first listener submitted episode. So today's question is how to lower your cholesterol naturally with healthy foods and nutrition. I think this is an excellent question. And extremely relevant too, with roughly more than 40 million people in the United States are taking statins. That's a huge amount of people taking statins. And since exercise is not a pill, statin is actually the number one prescribed medication. And I was actually prescribed this when I was about 20 years old. That's super young, but there I was. I was in the doctor's office and he told me I had high cholesterol and he gave me medication. Now he knew that I was a relatively healthy, fit, ate pretty well, so that was just the only solution we had left, I guess, at that point. Now, along with cholesterol, you may have heard of LDLs and HDLs and triglycerides as well, and we're going to get into those today too. And to wrap up the episode and to answer the very question that this is all premised on, what are some foods that can actually lower your cholesterol and raise your cholesterol too? I think those are important to note. But before we get into that, I think we need to answer one very important question, and what the heck is cholesterol? Now, cholesterol gets a very bad rap, and right reasons, I guess, but cholesterol is actually a type of fat and is present in our cell membranes, so it is vital to our body. One of cholesterol's roles is to help create the structure of the cell, and interestingly enough, our bodies actually produce enough cholesterol on its own. So no, you can never get your number down to zero, and you really do not want to get it all the way that low. It's used for the production of sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone, as well as adrenal hormones, and I'm no endocrinologist, and we're just going to leave it at that as far as what it does hormonal-wise. But cholesterol also helps produce bile acids for digestion of fat, nutrient absorption, and it helps produce vitamin D. I think we can agree it is pretty necessary for our body. It does a lot. So if you've ever had your blood tested, you've likely seen your LDL and your HDL. And these are density lipoproteins. L stands for low, H stands for high. So low density or high density lipoproteins. And lipoproteins shuttle cholesterol throughout the body via the bloodstream. For me, this always gets confusing, so I'm going to try to make it very simple. We want high levels of low density and low levels of high density. And generally, we're trying to lower our LDL and raise our HDL. But just remember, LDL is a bad cholesterol, HDL is a good cholesterol. But why are they good or bad? When we have high levels of LDL, or the bad one, it can actually cause a blockage in the arteries. This is where we really get concerned with cholesterol levels. The cholesterol will clump together, and it's just like squeezing a hose. The water can still get through, the blood still gets through, but if you squeeze hard enough, the water will stop. HDL is good because it helps remove that excess cholesterol out of the cells in the arteries. So LDL helps block it, HDL helps remove it, keeping it basic there. But there's also triglycerides. I'm sure you've seen those on your blood test as well. And that is just another type of lipid or fat that may contribute to the hardening of the arteries or the thickening of the artery walls, which increases the risk of stroke, heart attack, and heart disease. Again, not a good thing. So what actually contributes to this buildup? What are some risk factors for this? It's very similar to most health things. The older you get, the worse it is. Smoking doesn't help. Physical activity, the more sedentary you are, the worse it is. And then being overweight, also not a great thing. Family history and genetics, that's where I got really screwed over in that department. And then lastly, your diet can play a role too. And that's why we're going to spend some time later on discussing foods to help focus and limit. And I say that as a limit, not as eliminate, because you can still have those foods, just not make your diet 100% those things. Now, there are optimal ranges of LDL, HDL, triglycerides, but I just don't want to sit here and just throw numbers at you because I don't learn that way. I don't think a lot of people learn that way, just numbers, and hope you remember it. Let's try to keep it very streamlined. Your fasting triglycerides should be less than 150 milligrams per deciliter. Your LDLs should be less than 100, but at least less than 129. And then your HDLs should be probably more than 40 or 60. Really, an HDL, if it's less than 40, it's considered low. So fasting triglycerides more than 150, LDL less than 100, and HDL more than 40. Now that we're on the same page with what those 3-4 things really are, let's talk about the implications and seriousness of having, bad numbers. Atherosclerosis is a buildup of fats, cholesterol, and other substances in and on the artery walls. You may have heard of plaque, and that's the buildup we're talking about. Occluded is another terminology meaning blockage of the artery. It can lead to ischemia, which is an inadequate blood supply to an organ or body part. Atherosclerosis is a major culprit in most coronary heart disease. Large clinical trials have shown that lowering the lipid levels reduce the risk of atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease events. What are those? Heart attacks, chest pains, heart failure, coronary heart death, coronary disease, strokes, or transient ischemic attacks, peripheral artery disease such as intermittent claudication, aortic atherosclerosis, or abdominal aortic aneurysm. Pretty much that was just a bunch of big words that mean bad things. If you see any of those as a diagnosis, it's usually not a good thing. And I mention all those scary things because they all deal with your heart and they deal with your cardiovascular system. And they're all things to take seriously so we don't get to that point that you're going through one of those events. And the really cool thing is, it's not too late to fix that. It's not too late to lower your cholesterol. It's not too late to help prevent these things from happening. You can still do it even if you've had 60 years of poor dieting. So with that, let's get into the foods that you should focus on right after the break. I wanted to talk a brief moment about another way you can help support the show. Of course, liking and subscribing, fantastic. That helps so much. But if you want to take an extra step, there's a Patreon link down in the description where you can donate $5 a month to help support the channel. Your contribution is going to go such a long way to help bring on new guests and develop some of these projects we have in the works. Also, we're going to take the first month of everyone's donation from 2024 and donate it to charity. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support, and enjoy the rest of the episode. Welcome back. Now, this is a super fun study we're about to look at. Not exactly something I thought I'd say when I woke up this morning, a fun study, but it is what it is. As with all studies, you can find this down in the description. So this one combined 108 systematic reviews and 20 randomized controlled trials and broke down foods and how effective they are for raising or lowering cholesterol and its importance or, our confidence level in it. And I think that's really important to hit on because, first of all, not all research is created equally, and this looked at a lot of things. Let's just drive home how massive this study was. There's a hierarchy of evidence and research or types of research, the lowest being like editorials or expert opinion. Just going to the gym and asking the gym bro, what's the best way to build my biceps? Expert opinion, if they are an expert. And it's not that expert opinions are necessarily bad. Sometimes that's all we have. But if we have more, it's better to have better evidence. Anyways, an expert opinion would be like your friend telling you the answers to a test, and they may be right or they may be wrong. The highest level of evidence, systematic review, actually umbrella studies are better because they're a combination of systematic reviews, which we're looking at today. So systematic review is taking a collection of other studies and utilizing their data. Now, this is like the whole class gets to work together, and they have a textbook, and they have Google. It's just everyone's all working together. And then today is more of an umbrella study or a systematic review of systematic reviews and randomized controlled trials, which is the second best. It's one step below systematic reviews. So this is like the equivalent of taking a test, and not only your class gets to work on it together, but your class and another 7 other classes who are all taking it together all get to work together. So all 500 students in the same class get to work together. Very massive, very big, and Usually the bigger these studies are, the more powerful they're going to be. So, because this study looked at so many different studies, and not all those studies were created equally, the research had to look at the bias, the inconsistencies, indirectness, and precisions, and publication biases and things like that. Then in situations that they couldn't quite decide or the research didn't quite agree on, the authors of the study discussed and what they thought until a consensus was reached, applying just overall judgment. So let's start with triglycerides because that's honestly the easiest thing. Omega-3 supplements can be extremely beneficial. No other food, nothing really else, just omega-3 supplements. Now there's a very large table on foods, the effects on LDL, and the great evidence. And obviously you can't see that on the podcast. So I'm not going to go through all of these. There's probably like 40 maybe or so. But let's take a look at the big ones. The best of the best. Foods that are shown to improve or decrease LDL with moderate or high confidence. Because remember, we want to lower LDL. So all these foods here do that. Canola oil, soluble fiber like oats and barley, plants, so veggies. Plant sterols, which is like sesame oils, pistachio nuts, olive oil, sage, oregano, thyme, paprika, coconut butter oil, almond butter, sesame seeds, and macadamia nuts. Additionally, tomatoes, whole flax seeds, and almonds also decrease your LDL. And then also things like avocado, turmeric, hazelnuts, whole grains, and walnuts. Now, none of these foods here are like super weird, I would say. You probably maybe eat most of these or, throughout the year that you maybe got most of them in your diet. Maybe not the different oils, but if you just saw someone eating some almonds, that's not going to be like, oh my God, that's such a weird thing. Like that's so easy to add into your diet is some almonds, tomatoes, flaxseed. Now let's flip the coin. And these are some foods that actually increase your LDL with moderate or high confidence. That's going to be foods high in trans fat, unfiltered coffee, and added sugar. I'm not a huge coffee connoisseur. I mean, I drink it every once in a while, but I think mine's always filtered. I don't know how common people actually drink unfiltered coffee, but if that's what you're doing, not the best for your LDL. We've known for a very long time that trans fat is just a no-go. Like you don't want trans fat. And you're probably going to see trans fat in like processed stuff, processed foods, processed, cakes, cookies, pies, maybe frozen pizzas, those type of things. So as much as you can, limit those. I'm not saying you have to eliminate, you can't ever have a cookie. My goodness, what kind of world is that? It's just something to limit. And added sugar, I think most people can agree, let's lower or try to not get added sugar into our diet. So some other interesting foods to note within this graph here. Berries and dark chocolate produce small decrease in LDL with low confidence. So yeah, they probably decrease it a little bit. Don't go crazy on the berries and dark chocolate, but hey, it can be part of your repertoire. Dairy products have no clear effect and low confidence, so they're just not really sure. They don't really think it does anything, which I think is some promising notes because I think dairy gets a lot of flack. We also have fruit juice, sweeteners, and red meat have no effect with low confidence. And I think that's really cool because I feel like when people have high cholesterol, a lot of times like red meat, steak, like don't eat that stuff. You can probably have your steak, which I love steak, so that's awesome. And then eggs, going back to the beginning, my mama told me that eggs can increase your cholesterol. Well, she was right. Eggs have a small increase with low confidence. Now, here's where I stand on that. Even if they do increase a little bit your cholesterol, it's probably not going to be the thing that sends you over the edge into a cardiovascular event. Unless you're eating like eggs and nothing but eggs and nothing but eggs, you're probably eating some of these other foods. I mean, shoot, do you ever have eggs and toast? Make that whole grain toast and bam, those things kind of counteract each other. So I think when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, when you look at your cumulative diet, even if you have high cholesterol, it's probably okay to eat some eggs. And relatively, eggs are good for you as far as other things go, like protein and whatnot. So I'm not eliminating them from my diet, and that's coming from someone who has been diagnosed with high cholesterol. Take with that as you wish. But I do want to address one thing when it comes to eggs and any food that does contain cholesterol. And this is what my mom always told me, that eggs increase your cholesterol because they contain cholesterol. And as the old Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. In 2018, they did research and it showed it did not have evidence to support the role of dietary cholesterol in the development of cardiovascular diseases. So actually in the 2015 and 2020 dietary guidelines for Americans, they removed the recommendation of restricting dietary cholesterol. It was 300 milligrams per day. Now it's gone. But, that was 2018. What does the current research say on it? Evidence from observational studies conducted in several countries, not just America, generally do not indicate a significant association between cardiovascular disease and cholesterol intake. Now, again, significant, that does not mean with great magnitude. That just means statistically that something happens beyond just error or random chance. All in all, really, a recommendation with specific dietary cholesterol is difficult to target, and there's just too many things going on is what these researchers kind of concluded here. So the guidance focused more on overall diet rather than specific number of dietary cholesterol to limit yourself to. So yes, eggs may increase your cholesterol a little bit, but no, it's not because they contain cholesterol. It's something else within the eggs can cause a slight increase in your cholesterol levels. But I think what's really important to note here is that cholesterol levels, first of all, when they're high, it's dangerous. So let's take care of that immediately. And we take care of that throughout our lifestyle. If you can avoid medicine, that's awesome. If you have to go on it, that's fine. But fix your lifestyle, fix your food choices, get a little more active, eat some of these better foods for you that can help lower your cholesterol, like whole grain and avocados and tomatoes. So overall, you can be a healthier person, live a longer life, and not have to deal with these cardiovascular diseases. Thank you so much for submitting your question. I absolutely love it. And it's one of the easiest ways, honestly, to help support the podcast, as well as telling your friends and, subscribing and all that other stuff. Very much appreciated. But I love being able to really deliver the information that you guys are looking for. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to a Healthy Control podcast. You can find us at YouTube at A Healthy Control and make sure to subscribe. You can also reach me at ahealthycontrol@gmail.com with any comments or questions you'd like answered on the show. Reminder, A Healthy Control podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not in lieu of any medical advice. If you have any concerns about your health, please speak to your healthcare provider.